ma'am. Shabnam Hashmi is a social activist, a rebel, a fearless fighter, and a human rights defender. She is an excellent organization and a person who has generated ideas of thousands of creative campaigns and implemented them at local level as well as national level. Shabnam Hashmi has been she founded and ran Seher from 1981 to 1989, Sanhad from 1989 to 2003, which was formed after her brother Safdar Hashmi murder. Formed Anhad in 2003 after Gujarat genocide and recently started a platform, India Exclusive. Her fearless action against communal forces have evoked wrath of the diverse forced and the several times she has faced physical attacks. She was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize at a part of thousand women from across the world in 2005. She was awarded National Minority Rights Award in 2008 by the National Minority Community, which she returned last year to protect against the lynching. She has worked extensively in Gujarat, Kashmir, Bihar, along with the work at the national level. She worked on questions related to democracy, secularism, gender rights, women education, and adoption.
It's really inspiring, ma'am. Your journey is hard and you are truly inspiring. We look forward to
Thank you.
learning more about it. Before we start, let me brief you about Swachhta Jagran Samiti. Swachhta Jagran Samiti is headed by Mr. A.K. Chaudhary, Chairperson Mrs. Meena Chaudhary, and Managing Director Mrs. Harshita Saloni. She is also a Karamveer Chakra awardee. It is a non-profit organization started in 2016 based in Gurugram and Delhi. Swachhta Jagran Samiti, as its name implies, it is two dimensions: cleanliness and awakening. First, preserve ecosystem and support sustainable development action. Secondly, spread awareness and awaken the nation. Therefore, we believe that the aim of this interaction session is to learn from the vast experience and achievements of Shabnam Hashmi, not only in career but also about life. Let's begin with much honor. Let's welcome Ms. Shabnam Hashmi. It's a great pleasure for all of us to host you, ma'am. I request
Thank
audience,
you very much.
members, and participants to leave their questions in the comment section or on the WhatsApp group, and we will take them after the session. With your due permission, ma'am, I request Sonali to begin the session. Handing over you to Sonali.
Hello, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
It's really a grateful for me and it's an honor to be given this opportunity. So, ma'am, my first question to you is that, ma'am, you have been evoked in a social activism from 40 years. How was your perspective and implementation changed over the years?
See, when I started 40 years ago, as you said, in 1981, I started as a young student, probably as old as you are, or probably a little older, working in a basti. And I was teaching Muslim women and girls who had never been to school. So my perspective was of a young person. I looked at the problems of that particular basti and of individual women who were uh, coming to study at the center that I had started, which was called Seher. And I did not look beyond that, because for me the uh, immediate problems were there in the basti. I did not connect them with the larger issues. It is much later that I started working at a larger scale, that I started understanding that, whatever you are facing in a small basti is connected with larger processes of the society, uh, with patriarchy, with women's education, with women empowerment. So perspective changed as I started working at bigger levels. You have already mentioned I started working with Sehmat after my brother was killed, and in 1989. So I started working with artists, intellectuals, and I started understanding the ideologies and politics much more deeply than just being in a basti and looking the problems only inside the basti in their families, because it is very easy to put all the blame on a particular family or on the environments in a basti. But when you realize that there is a larger politics involved in why women are not allowed to go out or not study, so your horizon also increases, and so did my perspective and horizon.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. It was a great initiative taken by you. Ma'am, what inspired you to continue working for social change and how did you evoke in this type of work?
See, one is that I was brought up in a family which one did not put any pressure on any of us, any of the siblings, to run after careers. And we were told from our very childhood our responsibilities towards the society. Within our home there was an atmosphere of equality. It was a very democratic household where both my parents worked inside and outside the house and believed very intensely in dignity of labor, in giving equal rights to daughters and sons and women and men. So it was, I think, one, the atmosphere within the home, which I felt very strongly that whatever was not uh, correct around me, I must do something, even if a little bit, to improve that. And secondly, as I said, as I grew, I started studying. When I went to college, I realized that I was introduced to the Indian constitution, which guarantees equal status for every single human being in this country, and one saw the discrimination and inequalities. So there was this urge to do something about it. And as an individual or even one organization can't do anything, but the passion was there to change the society, to bring about a social change. And even smaller social changes means a lot. If we look at our personal lives, all of us, all five brothers and sisters, we married on our own. We strongly opposed the dowry system. We did not let anyone give or take dowries. So we even boycotted the marriages where dowry was being taken. So these are very small things, but they reflect on what kind of ideology you believe in. So I think it was just the urge inside to bring about social changes around you, even if they were small. I won't say that I have done something very big. I've worked in at a very small level as an activist, trying to change things in people's lives. And if I go back to Nizamuddin Basti, where I started working, where girls were not allowed to even move from one gully to another lane, we were able to educate over 400 girls and women, and many of them are today working, who were not allowed to even step out of their homes. Today they are working, and their next generations are doing masters and PhDs. So that continuous engagement with them and with a lot of other people, and the inequalities that you see, that keeps on giving you the strength to continue working as a social activist.
Thank you, ma'am. So well said. If we as an individual take a single step forward, it can make a big change into a society.
Yes.
So, ma'am, since communalism emerged, you fight in the field that have been the subject of controversy. How do you feel about physical aggression that comes with these issues?
See, physical aggression or violence, whether with the issue of communalism or any kind of extremism, any religious extremism, be it whichever religion, is has to be condemned. And I strongly condemn all kind of violence. I'm a believer in Gandhi's philosophy, who said that there is no bigger power than the power of non-violence. Even during the freedom struggle, he uh, propagated non-violent satyagrahas. And I think that is the only way that one can win any battle for equality, for justice. And any kind of aggression, whether it is caste aggression, because we see all around us how Dalits are discriminated against and how they are attacked continuously, how women are raped. Any kind of violence has to be condemned, has to be stopped to the best of our abilities. Not that we are able to do much about it, especially in the present circumstances when there is a politics and the atmosphere of violence all around. But as individuals, we have to keep on condemning violence and ourselves taking a path of peace and non-violent struggle.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, my next question to you is that in many cultures, women are seen to be submissive, but you choose to live as a social activist. So, how did you overcome all that was in your life leading you to this line of work?
See, I have been frankly very, very fortunate because I was born to a mother who was very progressive, and we were not taught to be submissive. Our atmosphere within our home was, as I have already said, was of equal status for everyone. We were not told that girls have to do this, or girls don't have to speak loudly, or girls don't laugh, or girls don't wear this, or girls don't go out after sunset. So while it was not very difficult for me, because I was raised as a independent and very bold citizen of this country, so I have personally not faced this, but a large number of people around me do face it, and they struggle with it, and they face the challenges and are able to come out and work. It is a lot to do with your own will of not being subjugated. If you decide that as a woman you are not going to allow anyone to discriminate against you, you can fight. It is not always possible because women live in very, very oppressive atmospheres also. But for me personally, it was never a challenge because my mother taught me. I remember as a kid, as a lot of teenagers want to wear jewelry and bangles and all that, and my mother always told me that these are all signs of subjugation. Like you put a pile in a woman's feet so that you can hear where she's going, so that she doesn't cross a certain limit. And we were given very although my mother was not she did not study feminism or anything, but she was, I think, one of the strongest feminist in my life, who taught us equality. And my father was equally a feminist. He didn't put any curbs on the daughters. So I won't say that I had to fight. I was very, very lucky to be born in a very progressive family. And
Thank you, ma'am.
then I married a man of my choice who believed in the same principles. And I have all my life lived an equal life within my house. Both had parents, and now we live together. So it has been quite a privileged situation, I should say.
Yeah, your story is really inspiring for us here. Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, in a country like India, where blood is considered a heavenly bond, what was the challenge of promoting the adoption?
See, adoption is still a very big question in India. One is that, let me begin with my own story. When I adopted 26 years ago, 25 years ago, my daughter was 1 year at that time when we adopted her from Palna, which is an adoption agency in Delhi. The first thing I was told, and we were told, both me and my husband, we were told that, you know, since you are non-Hindus, you do not have any, there's no legal provision to adopt. You can get only guardianship. And I was quite shocked because I have one that I have not read any of the religious text, whether Hindu or Islamic or anything. So I was quite perturbed by that, and we decided to challenge it. I went to the Supreme Court, And I said that, only because my name is Shabnam Hashmi or I come from Muslim descent, you cannot take away my right to adopt, or a child's right to be adopted. Because if my daughter had gone to a Hindu family, she would have got the rights of a natural born child. So why is she discriminated against? And we fought that battle for 9 years. During that period, the Muslim Personal Law Board intervened and they said it is not allowed in Islam. And it was a quite a long and bitter fight, but finally we won that in Supreme Court. It is considered a landmark judgment in India, where the Supreme Court expanded the scope of the Juvenile Justice Act and allowed people of every religion to adopt. So this is one of the things. Even in under the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, one could not adopt two children of the same sex. I mean, two girls or two boys. That was not allowed. And a woman could not adopt without the permission of her husband. So there were many legal battles which had to be fought. Fortunately, with the changes in the Juvenile Justice Act, now those problems are not there. But apart from that, there are behavioral and ideological problem, as you have mentioned, that people think that the blood is very important or our genes are very important, and those mindsets are very difficult to change, although they are changing. I remember when I got the first call from Palna, the director at that time, Aruna Kumar, who unfortunately died later. She said that we have identified a daughter for you. Please come and approve. That was those were the words, approve. And I said, what do you mean by approve? I mean, you have identified she's our daughter. You tell us when we can come and take her. So later she told me that there are parents who want to have children who are fair, who are healthy, who have good features, and so on and so forth. So these things have to be these any social change, any change in the mindset of the people is a very slow process, and one has to continue to promote that. Also, another problem is that there are many people who do not tell their children that they are adopted. They want to hide it because they think that the larger family will have objections and so on. So that is another thing which is very difficult to tackle, because if an adopted child comes to know from somewhere else, then he or she loses all confidence in the parents. So these are major issues in adoption, and also the whole process of adoption is extremely tedious, which also unfortunately makes a lot of parents cannot wait for that long. They wanted to adopt a child. There are lakhs of children who need homes, and there are parents who want to adopt, but the whole process has to be made more easier for people to adopt. These are some of the basic issues.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you so much for your so inspiring answer. Like, it's really important to adoption. Like, it's reduce the gap between the parents and the children. So, ma'am, like your contribution to the society, Sheher and Sahemad, and now from last 18 years you have been running Anhad, are great contribution to the community. How can we as an individual promote and run a cause such as this?
You see, it depends. It has to be your internal calling. If you want to make a change, it can be done at an individual level. There are many people. Like, let me give you an example of my elder sister, who never started any organization all her life, but throughout her life she was identifying two three girls around her, either single mothers or single parents, or and helping them with their education, with uh, ensuring that they get jobs. So there, I mean, this is just one example. There can be many things. There would be people around you whose children are unable to study. You can devote time and help them to study. And the most important thing in today's India, when there is so much of hatred around, it is important that within our own circles we start talking about this, even if it is inconvenient. I know of many young students who tell me that they have, almost the conversations are breaking down within their homes, because they do not believe in any caste system or any class or any religious bigotry. But the earlier generation continues to have those kind of, discrimination or hatred. So it is very important that we talk about it, and we try and ensure that at least people around us who are either underprivileged or they are discriminated against, we stand with them and help them to live a life of dignity to the best of our abilities. I mean, you can do what you can. One person or one organization cannot do everything, but even small changes, and as an individual within your families, it is important that you stand up for your mother. It's every one in every five women is abused. So there are lots of us who have seen discrimination within our homes, against our sisters, against our mothers. It is very important that we stand up within our homes and fight for equal status for our own selves also, as girls, as women. If you are not getting the same status as your brother, then there is a need to assert yourself and say that, I'm an equal citizen and I'm going to fight for my rights. And these small changes then add to the larger changes in the society.
That's really a great message to audience, ma'am. Thank you so much. So, ma'am, is there any incident that you would like to share that made you passionate about social activism?
Well, how I became an activist, it was just, you mentioned 1981. I was actually on vacation from my university. I was studying abroad, and a friend of mine was working in Nizamuddin Basti, and he requested me to just help with some literacy work. And the first girl or woman whom I met, she was at that time 16 years. She was married at 12 years. At 15, she was divorced with two children. At 15 years, she had two children and she was divorced. She had never been to school, and she wanted to study. And that was something, I think, you know, the fact that somebody could be married off at such a young age, I had never before that encountered that, although I had read that in newspapers and all that. And after 2 months of my vacation, when I had to go back, this young girl said that, for the first time we have seen some hope in our lives, and what is going to happen to us. And I think that changed my life forever, because had I gone back and studied, I was studying, doing my master's in Russian language, I would have come back and taught in a school probably as a teacher. But the fact that I decided not to go back and continue to work, and I worked in that basti almost 15, 16 hours every day for 8 years, that made me realize that there is so much to do. And that is what made me, passionate about doing social work and working with ordinary people who are marginalized, who have not got what this country had promised at the time of the independence. So she's responsible for my becoming an activist. And from there on, it has been, if I don't know, if my brother was not attacked and killed, probably I would have continued working in that basti. But because my brother Safdar Hashmi, who was a theatre activist, he wanted me to run a repertory which he was planning to make, a theatre repertory. So I owed it to him to, in his memory, to run that organization. So I had to move out of the basti and start working with Sehmat. So I think that is what it is. And even now, 6 months ago, a young woman walked into Anhad office. She was also married off at 15 with a number of kids, and husband having abandoned her. So how do you, not feel passionate about doing something which will change their lives, which would give them some hope? Someone who has faced domestic violence for so long and is so talented, and all her children and she herself, they paint so well. So you realize that your little intervention can change their lives, and I think that is what keeps the passion alive, and that is what gives all of us, all the activists, strength to continue to work.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, as you work at the local level, so what do you do to promote the issues like IGBTQ? As people in that area do not really have the kind of exposure to the wider world.
Well, frankly, we have not done much work on LGBTQI communities. Our only intervention has been when, over the last, one is that there are many issues which uh, the whole society was very insensitive to. Whether it is the gender issue, we started talking about gender equality sometime in 1970s when the women's movement started in this country. LGBTQI communities were never talked about. It is the last 10, 15 years that we have finally started talking about them and being sensitive towards their problems. Our only involvement has been that we have organized many national level campaigns where we ensured that there was equal participation, or at least representational participation, from the LGBTQI communities, and it has been there. But on the ground level, I mean, I'm no longer working in bastis as such. We were doing a lot of work in till 2014. We were working in 30, 40 villages in Kashmir. In Mewat, we were working in 10 villages. In Bihar, we were working in 11 villages. But all that work collapsed when the new government came, because they just cancelled, FCRA for a lot of organizations who were very vocal. So while we continue to be very vocal and critical, but our community level work has collapsed. So when you are working on in the villages or at the community level, then it is very important to ensure that there is space given to LGBTQI communities, space given to Dalits and Adivasis, and space given also to the physically challenged people or differently able people. So, but I have frankly not done too much of work. I can't claim that I have done, but there are many organizations, at least in Delhi, I know, who are continuously engaging with LGBTQI communities.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. Ma'am, having already created and implementing many campaigns, can you please explain the thinking behind those campaigns and what are the changes you want to make?
See, we have done many campaigns. Let me talk about two campaigns. One was in 2010, which we called Reservation Express. That was for demanding the implementation of women's reservation in the parliament and the assemblies. And we traveled in three different women caravans across India. We covered the whole of India, three different groups of women. It was flagged off from Jhansi and it culminated in Delhi. The idea was that it is important to have women at the policy level, and while we passed the reservation bill in Rajya Sabha, it was never passed in the Lok Sabha. So the demand was for getting that bill passed. Unfortunately, it still hasn't passed till now. We have seen, especially during the pandemic, that wherever we have women prime ministers in different countries, their record has been much, much better. Wherever women are there at policy level, you will see that those countries or those states, or even in India, we have now at the panchayat level, even the panchayat level, you will see that the development work is a lot more progressive and equal than where women are not there. So that was the idea for that campaign. And in 2018, I think, or 17, we did a campaign called Baatein Aman Ki. That was the time when across India lynchings were happening. There was hatred being spread in every corner of India. And it was quite depressing, the kind of atmosphere, because especially my generation, which has seen the post independent India, where we spent a lot of time in encouraging communal harmony and living together and celebrating diversity, we were very perturbed. And we thought that, instead of these hate talks happening everywhere, why don't we go and talk about peace and love and harmony and bringing people together? So again, we traveled in five caravans traveled across India. Of every caravan had 20 to 30 women each, and we covered 200 cities and villages across India and organized 500 programs during a period of 1 month, talking about peace, talking about respect, dignity, equality, and propagating the ideas of love and harmony. So that was the idea, just to counter the hate propaganda which was overtaking the country. And similar campaigns, we have done quite a lot of campaigns. I can't talk about all, so these two are a good example.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. Ma'am, my last question to you is that what do you intend to contribute to the aims of Swachhta Jagran Samiti, cleaning and awakening of the nation?
You see, when we say cleaning and awakening of the nation, I think the most important thing is that we clean our hearts and minds. Physical cleaning is it's very important, no doubt about it. But unless you are able to cleanse your souls, unless you are able to fight the demon within you, which makes you hate the other, and the other can be anyone. It could be a woman, it could be a Dalit, an Adivasi, a person from minorities, somebody who doesn't speak your language, like we saw at one time in Bombay, the hatred against the Biharis and the UP Walas, or we are seeing the hatred against the Muslims and the Christians in this country, or the Dalits. It is important that we first clean ourselves and our minds. And if your organization wants me to interact with people, talk about why people hate, and what are the myths around that, and what is the reality of the kind of hatred that is spread, I would be very happy to contribute and interact with all the young people, and even invite other people who can do that. And anything else you want me to do, I'm always happy to be there. Whatever time I get, I'll be happy to come visit you in Gurgaon and Gurugram, which is called now, and be with you, chat with you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's really an inspiring message from you. So, well, that's all from me. Now, I would like to request Achal to continue the discussion. Is there any questions from the audience? Achal, can you please ask question on behalf of the audience if there are any?
Thank you, Sonali. There are some questions from our audience. So the first question here is, being a human rights fighter, just out of concern, I wanted to know if this means everyone has equal human rights, or if some individuals are privileged to be given more of such rights.
No, every citizen of this world has human rights, and the human rights should be respected. Unfortunately, human rights are not respected, and there is a huge violation of human rights, not only in our country but in other countries also. I think we saw a huge campaign called Black Lives Matter, and we need similar campaigns here. Dalit lives matter and women lives matter. Every human being who lives on this earth has uh, a right to dignity, or to a dignified life, to be treated as an equal citizen, to have right to life, to have right to livelihood. um, there are millions of young people who have lost their jobs in the last few years. So everyone has human rights.
Absolutely, ma'am. So the next question here is, in what ways can young people make a difference in their community?
I've already talked about it because Sonali had asked me that question. I can repeat that. See, first of all, it is very important for the young people to realize that the most important document which we have in this country is our constitution. the Constitution of India. And it is very important to abide by the Constitution and to ensure that the constitutional values are respected in this country. So, first of all, if there is anything which is in your mind and hearts which contradicts the Constitution, then it is important to change your own selves. Like not treating others equally, not having respect for women, for various other sects, for Dalits, for the marginalized communities. And the most important thing is that bring these changes within your homes first. Because a bigger change comes in a society when smaller changes come in our own families. So if there is inequality within your family, if your sister is not being treated equally, if you are a girl and you are not being treated equally, if your mother is not being treated equally, if there is talk of hatred against anyone, it could be somebody who works in your house, it could be someone who cleans outside your home. If there is, you find that in the minds and hearts of my parents or my brothers and sisters there is discrimination against anyone, try and talk to them and influence them that first of all you have to fight this discrimination from your minds. Once you do that, and once you bring your change within your family, then expand to your friends circle and try talking to them. Because we, when we were fighting against the British, which was a 200-year long fight, we thought of forming a country which will treat every citizen equally and which would celebrate diversity, where everyone will have equal rights. Unfortunately, we are going in the reverse direction. So, young people have a very big responsibility. You know, people like me, I am already 64. I can be active another 10 years. But what kind of India we are going to build, you are going to be living in that India. So if it is an India which is full of violence and hate, it'll affect you also. If it'll affect your future generations. If we can build an India which is passionate, which is compassionate, which has love and harmony, and which loves other people and respects everyone, and everyone can live with dignity there, then it will be a nice and harmonious India for all the young people to live in, where you don't have to you don't have to be worried that if I fall in love with such and such person, I would be prosecuted or I won't be allowed to marry her or him. Young people have a right to choice. They have a right to what they wear, what they eat, whom they fall in love with, whom they marry, and we have to fight for those rights. In our generation, these were not such huge questions. There was a lot of openness in the society, which is unfortunately now decreasing. So fight for your own rights and fight for constitutional rights. Yes, Anjali.
I hope our younger generation will hear this. So the next question here is, how did your brother Safdar Hashmi's death affect your life?
Well, Safdar was elder to me by 2.5 years, and we grew up together, uh, having same passions, having same ideology, except that he was an extremely creative person, and he wrote plays. He got involved in his college days. He formed a theater group and he started writing and performing. I was never into that field, although a lot of people think that since Safdar was doing theater, I do theater also, which I don't. But I would say that his death and his murder very deeply affected me and affected everyone close to him, not only the immediate family, but his friends, his circle. He had a huge circle. And it, I think, gave us a determination again, although all of us were doing similar things, but it um, just reinforced the determination to keep on fighting for a society which will be equal, which would be just, and where young and creative people like Safdar won't be murdered. Although that has not stopped, we lost so many people. We lost Gauri Lankesh a few years ago, same mindless killing. So, yes, a brother's loss is a very deep personal loss. Um, but we continue to fight in his memory and in the memory of many martyrs. Pash, who was a young poet also in Punjab, who was killed by the extremists. There are many others. We have the legacy of Bhagat Singh with us, and Safdar and Pash and many others, and Gauri Lankesh.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question here is, as a woman, what is your ideology behind education for women and gender rights?
Well, absolutely equal. I've already spoken about it. I think every woman, every girl has a right to get good quality education, equal education, get opportunities to work without any hindrance, and have the right to, if she decides to live as a single woman, then she should have a right to live as a single woman. If she decides to marry on her own, she should have a right to do that, of the man or a woman of her choice. um, there are no questions about it. Every woman has equal rights and should have equal rights, which unfortunately are very far from being achieved. And every woman should have equal rights to participate in the parliamentary democracy process, in getting elected if she wants to go into politics, or do whatever she wishes to. There shouldn't be any curbs. She shouldn't have to ask anyone whether I can do this or not. Um, Once she's an adult, and even as a child she should have equal rights. She should be brought up equally, not like, because in our families, a lot of girls are told that you have to play with a doll and the brother plays with a gun. I think that needs to stop. We need to play with toys which we want to, and not play with guns at all, because when you give anybody a gun to play with, you are inculcating violence from that little uh, age. So equal rights for all women.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was so good to hear and learning from you affect us deeply. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sonali.
Ma'am, our Swachhta Jagran Samiti team salutes you. Thank you so much, ma'am. We all wish you continued success. Having you here and learning from you was a blessing. Thank you, audience, for your time and joining the session. And I hope you all are taking something useful away from it. So, we all are now ending the session with due permission of you all. If you still have any questions, you can WhatsApp or mail us. We will take it into consideration. Stay in touch. We will update you with our next session. Stay safe. Take care. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank